Live from the MC.
The Dyckman Podcast presents Casual Supremacy with your host, Jasob Paulino.
Thank you so much
How
for
does
having
that
me.
sound?
It sounds great, brother. You know, like I love talking about serious things that affect our lives here in Inwood and Dyckman. You know, we all grew up around here, and you know, there's some real things that, like you said, I love Dyckman Podcast. But yeah, just looking at how real things are affecting people who gotta just survive and make money. You know,
Jason, bro, thank you for coming because this is a big void that we've been missing. Just the Dyckman Podcast is one entity. But I feel like we need a more woke version, a more informative version, I would say, and that's the perfect person.
Yeah. Woke, I will say that's so loaded, that term, because people think that when people say that to you, like if someone says that to you, like that's like some compliment, but it's not. They're really trying to kind of, you know, it's kind of a joke, but it's, you know, depending on who's saying it to you, just know that, you know, like sometimes someone said that to me and they thought it was being cute. And I was like, no, that's, you're just trying to kind of, diminish, you know, again, I think with politics, I think, you know, what always scares me is when people try to take like really complicated issues and they try to turn it into like a buzzword or a phrase. Oh, you're woke. And you're like, no, like, you know, there's just so many factors to this thing, and just that you're trying to diminish everything and I'm not trying to hit
I could get a politician saying woke and it could be diminished, but not coming from live from the MC.
No. That's not what
exactly why we're here.
Yeah.
We want to speak about these important terms, these important politics, if you could say, and just like overall wokeness.
All right, fair enough. You know.
Okay, well, is that fair to say?
Yeah, fair enough. Like I said, I still I'm anti-woke. It is what it is. It's just like
anti-woke.
I really am.
Jay, we're basing this no.
Here's the thing. I'm anti the term or it being used that way. Like I said, you think that it's like, I get it. You're trying to kind of take it back over, but it just turned into something that is like. It's like it just makes you feel like you're like you can't look at any specific topic and and like make decisions on it, you know, based on anything that's going on. So it's not that I'm of course I'm about the culture, you know, but what I'm saying is that though that like I don't let myself be defined that way. Like, oh, I'm woke. I'll be like, no, go fuck.
I get it. It's like when you hear your parents say, "Oh, it's lit." It's like come on, your parents.
Yeah.
Shouldn't really be saying lit.
You know, I come from a moderate kind of background. I don't know, you know, as far as politics, but a lot of it too is like our world and everything's going on. You know, today's Labor Day. Happy Labor Day.
Happy Labor Day to everybody.
Yeah, man. You know, and a lot of things are going on. The PUA is done. You know, the enhanced unemployment for a lot of people. It's 8 million people who just got cut off unemployment.
Let's start right there, Jason. Let's start right there. That's something that's affecting the people. I'm sure there are a lot of people throughout the nation collecting unemployment, and just in New York City in general, period.
Yeah.
Also, shout outs to those people that were collecting unemployment in like 40 to 50 states. I don't know how they got that shit off, but nonetheless.
You know, they added it to state unemployment. So most people still have, like, if you're still within, like, your year or whatever the claim is, you probably still have the state. But for a lot of people, they just lost kind of that federal extra, maybe like $300, whatever it is. It's not the end of the world. You know, again, people are going to have to get back to work and see what's going on. It's been a couple of years. But, you know, again, you know, it's funny. Everyone's kind of tired of COVID. I get it. No one wants to talk about it. But 2021 is going to kill a lot more people with COVID than 2020 did. And we were scared before, but it's actually got worse. You know, like, you know, things are going on in Florida. You know, again, we'll save that one for a little later. You know, I know COVID is just like one of those things that it's just heavy on everyone right now. And it's part of like the life that we're living. But, you know, the first thing I really wanted to kind of talk about, but I don't know if you have something specific that you wanted to mention, but go for it.
No. So, bro, this is your show. You know, like once again, this is for the people. People have reached out to the Dyckman Podcast. They say, well, we want something more intuitive. We want something more mind stimulating.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, as far as the podcast, the Dyckman Podcast, you know, structure is very very ongoing, let's just say that. So I feel that with Jasob Paulino, a more conscious person, a more person in tune with the community, it's you're the person we want to hear it from, bro. Like,
thank you very much. I don't know about
this
that.
This is your show.
Thank
Like,
you very
honestly,
much.
this is your show, co-produced. And yeah, bro, like we're here to speak about like the things that are affecting the community. And with that being said, we could start right there. Unemployment is definitely going to affect a lot of people. 1.8 million people, especially people in New York. Not certain the percentage of people collecting unemployment in Dyckman, but I'm sure that we had to have our numbers of unemployment.
Yeah.
And with that being said, let's start right there. How is this going to affect our community?
I mean, I don't know about, it's obviously it's just less money that's going around or being circulated, most of that stuff. Because, you just keep, most of that money stays in the community. To be honest, like them pulling that money, they think that they're helping people, but a lot of times it just like kind of starves out. Like there's just less spending. People just become, and especially in a neighborhood like us, we were already people who are used to sacrificing, or you know what I'm saying, it's not like this opulent. There is certain groups, but for the most part those people are hardworking, kind of there's an immigrant community, and I always talk about that in Inwood. The biggest thing for us, because most of us are like first generation, second generation Americans, like most of our parents weren't raised in this country, which people don't really understand that kind of impact, that disconnect. And I know it, that's kind of the American dream, and that's happened for generations, but that does take you a step back. My parents came here. My father is 77. My mom in 82. I was born in 82.
Yeah.
So it's a different thing. But as far as unemployment, it's kind of like this country's always just kind of criminalized poverty. And we have the money. It's not like we figured it out. We were just spending $300 million in Afghanistan a day for 20 years. So when they tell you they don't have the money, they're lying. But you gotta understand is you're just not in the seat of power. So we're just kind of trying to fight. So we have to, fight for it. But this country for a long time has criminalized being poor, and that's kind of one of the underlying aspects. And I think also when people do get their thing going, a lot of times people forget about, what's happened in the past, and how that affects people. So yeah, definitely. I think right now the biggest thing that we're seeing, like we just saw. Oh, my book just fell behind me. This is, first of all, I want to introduce myself just because I don't know, for a lot of people who don't know who I am.
Let's bring it down a notch. I would say,
yeah.
Introduce yourself. Because,
sure, I'll tell you why I do this or how I do this. But this is my novel, Chosen. I'm an author. I wrote these 10 years ago, these 2 science fiction novels here. Always been curious, grew up around here, went to Lady Queen of Martyrs, Arden Street, All Hallows, Catholic school, Hamilton College, all New York institutions for education. I have a non-for-profit organization, Casual Supremacy, which is about connecting the past to the present. You can check out casualsupremacy.com. This is one of my T-shirts. I'll tell you a little bit more about the gentleman on my T-shirt and this. Casual Supremacy, again, casualsupremacy.com, or on the Instagram, the IG. But it's just about remembering. People so quickly forget the things that got us here. And especially America. We're taught American history. It's a very selective way that they teach us about our world and our lives and what's happened and how we've learned it. And when you really, that old saying, like the devil's in the details, like when you really look at the details, you understand what it took to, America hasn't been around that long, like we deal with like the Chinese have been around for like 5,000 years, like you're talking about like, these societies, and we haven't even lived as long without slavery as we did with. Like, we're just such a small, like a short time. America really is an experiment. And so it's kind of interesting to see what's going on. Another thing, as far as my own qualifications here is my professional role. I help people get affordable housing apartments. I work for a big developer. I just fill up these, and so that's another thing that I'm definitely want to discuss today. Affordable housing, New York, infrastructure. There's a lot of like these new affordable housing buildings being built here in the neighborhood, and it's come with a lot of opposition, a lot of like pushback. Oh, they're changing our neighborhood. They're doing this. They're doing that. But I've discussed this with you before. We're dealing again with 21st century, problems and everything that's going on. Climate change. We just survived Ida, which just dumped more rain than we've ever really seen. And we live in apartments, we live in buildings. I live around the corner here on 207 that were built in 1913. So it's been over 100 years. And so there have all these new buildings and things, and people are fighting them.
Things could change in 100 years.
But a lot of things have changed, and we're going to have to invest in our own infrastructure. The president just passed infrastructure bill. I mean, it's kind of, they beefed it up and they got a lot of stuff. When there's a big pot of money like that, that's the only thing with that kind of stuff. They pass it over. They're going to put a lot of money, but they're also going to give a lot of money away to all these people just to calm them down, just so that they could get these things passed. But this is America. This is how we live. It's just kind of, the problems are crazy, but you have to understand the past to understand how it relates to like almost anything you could think of, that's going on right now. You could relate it to a part in the past, right now, COVID, the vaccines, like mandates, you listen to like songs in the 80s and they're still talking about like, there's a Billy Joel song, like We Didn't Start the Fire, which I love for Casual Supremacy. And he talks about the vaccines, it's like, it's just all these things just kind of keep circling around. There's not anything new, like George Washington was the first person to put mandated vaccines for the Continental Army. For smallpox. If you didn't have smallpox, you had to be vaccinated. George. Just so people really get. No worries. I know. It is what it is. But this is not new. This is not, and this is, but either way, we won't start on that right now. But there's just so many things. And as far as them they're about to build something on 207. I recommend anyone who is interested in affordable housing, especially if you have low income, this is the perfect time. NewYorkCityHousingConnect.com. NewYorkCityHousingConnect.com. This is kind of what I do all day.
This is not an ad.
It's not an ad. No, this is like state stuff. Understand is that like these people are still getting paid. Even though they diminish Section 8, they diminish all these things. The government pays them on the first day. Most people just don't know how to process it. That's why a lot of times you have so many issues with landlords who don't want to process these things. But you don't need to be like, and especially affordable housing, people think of it as this low income stuff. But, I work in like a luxury building in Queens, in Long Island City on the waterfront. These are, it's all AMI, area medium income. And so all I'm saying is that, you have a moderate income, you should just get on this website, and every affordable housing building in the city, you have to apply through this website. And most people don't know about it and don't understand that, there's all these buildings that are like, oh, they're trying to kick us out of this community. No, you can apply for these apartments just like anyone else. There is no like limit to feeling like seeing what's going on. And we need these new buildings. We need this new infrastructure. We have to stop thinking about ourselves. What about our kids? What about our grandkids? Yeah. We're going to be sitting on buildings that were built 200 years before. You know what I'm saying? Like, because we just were like, oh, we don't want to build anything new. They're changing our neighborhood. Yeah, they're updating it. It's 100 years old. You have to, you look at what's going on in the subways right now with this last Ida. They've got flooded, and it's gonna get worse and worse and worse. Like there's no stopping that. Yeah. That's until it sinks in the ground. We live in the heights. Thankfully, we're at the top end. I always say this is like Inwood. People don't really get it as far as like strategy or just territory. Like this is prime New York territory. This is a very top Manhattan, very highest point. So that like as Manhattan starts sinking, we're gonna be the part that's like we were gonna move uptown. It's gonna start at the very bottom of Manhattan. I mean, it's just gonna happen like because most of our the middle of Manhattan is a subway system. So as the more water accumulates like in these tunnels, it's gonna change. Maybe not by the time in the next like 30, 40 years, but like it'll be different by the time like we're like older men, or that thing if we make it that far. So it's just so many things, but I definitely recommend people like, listen, get your paperwork together. If you ever want to reach out to us through Dyckman Diary, through Casual Supremacy, again, follow me on IG or go on the website. If you have any questions about, filling out one of these affordable housing applications, it's just very documented. They want to have every document, but you should have these documents. You should have your social security card. You should have your birth certificate. You should have your license or ID with your address. It's more like that. It's tedious. They're asking for a lot of stuff, but
you have to be organized.
Yeah, you're gonna have to just put it together. But it's worth it to get like a nicer apartment, probably. In a newer building, and like something that's again, the AMI, meaning that it's people think that sometimes they call workforce housing. where again, it's not people who making like 70, 80. I deal with people making $100,000 a year. Like in New York, that's not much money. So, I would recommend, everyone in this neighborhood embrace some of the changes coming to this building, embrace the affordable housing that's being built in this neighborhood, and be the first ones to apply because your community board, your preference, because you live in Inwood, your application is you're on the preferred list. I don't think people understand that. Like, first of all, it comes like the elderly and disabled. But the biggest usually group that fills up affordable housing in areas and like when they're brand new or whatever it is, because that's what it is. A lot of times those older buildings, you can never get into them because people don't give those apartments up. Like especially if you got like a really low AMI, you've been there for a long time, people die in those apartments. But again, there's a lot of these brand new buildings. Well, yeah, if you have 300-400 new apartments, then you have a really good chance of getting an apartment. You just have to kind of be ready for it. And you gotta understand, like, you think your credit's not good, you're not gonna get an apartment. It doesn't matter. Like, you can have bad credit and get your affordable. They can't deny you because that's a little secret right there. Like, you think, oh, whatever it is,
That's
everyone.
just not how the system is
It's just
built.
not. It's just not how it was. It's changed because of, I think, they changed, but like as someone who's working in it like right now, understand, like, don't think, oh, I don't have the credit for this. Like, the chances are they're not going to be able to reject you over your credit if you're working, if you can provide them that, you're, just again, it's just income. Everything is just, we calculate income,
It's
assets.
for the people, by the people.
Yeah, I mean, it's something where it's not always perfect, but because they're trying to make this money. But New York City is, again, it is very tenant friendly, meaning that, like, even though like the national moratorium for evictions was canceled, our new governor, Hochul, she kept it going. She was like, no, you have till January, till 2022. So so there's all these things. It's like, listen, okay, fine, you got less than unemployment, but if you live in New York, at least you're not, they're not gonna be able to move you out of your apartment until 2022 for at least a little bit. But you got to be smart. You have to make a plan. You can't just be like, oh, you're not gonna be able to live off of this forever. And listen, I applaud anyone who took this opportunity. I myself took the opportunity during this time and try to like rebuild their brand, rebuild like what they believe in, what they care about. Because as we get older, you realize that's you have to kind of be vested because it's the future. And yeah, man, we live in New York City, and most of our infrastructure, and I think one of the biggest things, especially with global climate change, is that it's just gonna keep getting worse. And we don't do anything. Our pipes are over 100 years old. Our subway system's 120 years old. Like all these delays, all this stuff. It's unfortunately like, for so many generations, they kept passing the buck, and we're the ones who got, it's like hot potato. We're like the last ones who got like caught with it. But everyone's just kind of held this off and like just not worried about it and just been like, and that's kind of human.
Let the next
exactly, like everything else. Everyone's mad about Biden pulling out Afghanistan, but it's just nobody wanted to do the courageous move. It was just easier not to do anything, and we all know that as adults, sometimes the best thing is just to hold, just to, be quiet and just hold on. But like, again, like say something like Afghanistan, it's like, they were making the media the 13 soldiers that died, the last towards in that withdrawal, but they didn't talk about the thousands who had died in the last 20 years. It's today's September 4th.
It's facts.
Yeah, man, it's gonna be September 11th. 20 years. I remember where I was in college. 18 years old, Hamilton College, upstate New York. And I had slept in for a class, and so all these crazy things that were all set off kind of at this right. It's kind of crazy that it all coming together. September 11th, that's another, big topic, we could definitely go into. Well, it's next week, but, again, we'll talk about that thing next week. Especially again, I'm about 38 years old. And so it's like, this was like this was such a life-changing experience. I just was watching HBO Max. Spike Lee has his Epicenters series. It's got like 3 episodes out right now. That's essential watching. It's New York City Epicenter. It's about COVID. And it's about 9/11. It's crazy. They made Spike change the 4th episode. Yeah, because he brought in some of the architects, engineers, some of the people who question 9/11, the conspiracies. Some people who again, these were like like 200-300 like architects and engineers who were basically like, nah, this isn't exactly what happened. And everyone for so long, when you talk about 9/11, if you ever mention anything, it's so funny thinking about it only in the kind of COVID times where like everything is a conspiracy and we can question the CDC, the everything else. But like if Biden is just today finally released documents that the FBI on the investigation of 9/11 that the FBI had classified. I was on Twitter and I was saying, well, why is it that like, a crime was committed against this country, we investigated it, and then we classified it over 20 years, but you can't really talk about those things without being like, oh, the victims and, you know, and see what's going on. And I get that. And I'm like, listen, I'm a New Yorker. Like, I'm actually really trying to understand this truly, not like, you know, I get this whole like nostalgia, you know, but like, you know, with COVID, it's like, oh, doctor said this, CDC said this. I don't believe the government. You know, you can question it, or it's like much more like whatever it is, but it just seems this is double standard. But I just thought it was crazy that they made Spike Lee go back and change this and pull these people out who are accredited architects and engineers. You know, I felt like 9/11 was the first time in my life as American where we first started like questioning like science. We're just like, they were like, oh, that doesn't burn hot enough to, and people are like, you know, and again, it turns into this whole thing. And you know, all I say about, you know, 9/11 at this point is like, we obviously don't know everything. If they're still declassifying something today, literally this today, that he released some of the documents, some of them he declassified. So there's something deeper there. You know, you're telling me like you can't even give us, you know, we pay the FBI, government agencies, like we pay to have these people protect us. So it's crazy that, you know, 20 years later, you know, but there's all kinds of events like that. And again, I'm not, you know, blaming or putting on anything, but I just feel like we weren't told everything, obviously, because why would you have to classify all this stuff? I mean, it's just been sitting there for 20 years. I think it's criminal, actually, to have some of these, like, you know, to have our own country investigate a crime against itself, something that they, again, also set off so many different things, like Afghanistan that just ended, you know, Iraq, all the stuff that my entire adulthood was defined by this one event, and they're still like we're just, you know, like
everything happens for a reason.
Like, that's not shady. I'm like, are you telling me you got all this stuff classified? And you're like, no, I told you everything, but everything that's in that paper, you can't look in the closet. There's a bunch of documents in there that
happens for a reason.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, it does happen for a reason in that, you know, so I think someone forced,
and the reason was classified.
Yeah. So I mean, it's something to do with it. So it's very interesting stuff that's going on in the world in general. I kind of want to pull back a little bit because one of the big things that I've been studying or I have been talking about recently on Casual Supremacy. Again, if you go to the Casual Supremacy IG, you'll see there's like, I don't like any comments or nothing. It's like a museum of American history. The images, the one thing you can't deny is that each one of them like happened and seeing what's going on. The gentleman on my shirt here, which I saw on casualsupremacy.com, Gary Stephen Webb. And this is something that you really should, you know, do your own research. This is something you should really do your own research on.
This is the catchphrase.
Do your own research, exactly. But you know, I'm like, listen. Unfortunately, I'm not a microbiologist, but either way. But I'm talking about just again in history and how it affects our day-to-days. This is my challenge to you, my Casual Supremacy Hour. You know, like look it up. Challenge for the week. Gary Stephen Webb. He was a reporter for the San Jose Mercury in California. He was the person who basically discovered that, you know, our government was bringing in, you know, was basically allowing these drug dealers to bring in tons of cocaine that eventually was really what spurred the crack epidemic. If you want like a basic thing on him, if you have Netflix, Jeremy Renner, Kill the Messenger, is based on him, and he does a great job as whatever. I remember watching this movie years ago and didn't really get that what was going on or clicked on what's going on.
At the time.
You didn't understand that exactly what the kind of implications of it, you know, but he basically, and so he has a book called Dark Alliance, and I just finished it, and this is one of the most dense things you've ever read. I mean, he's got names, he's got dates, he's got, you know, he's just a prolific, like, investigative journalist, you know. His birthday was August 31st, like my father, so he's a Virgo, so, you know, those people are real serious. You know, shout out to all my Virgos. You guys are, you know, you're heavy in the heart, you know. But this guy was just that dude. You have to look this man up. You know, eventually, you know, he killed himself, 2 bullets to the head. You know, like, crazy story how this ends, you know, like, and then they said that he killed himself, 2 shots to the head, you know. So believe that. So it's crazy, but it's wild, and you just have to read what he's talking about. And, you know, he talks about, you know, the DEA, you know, the State Department. And it's crazy because, you know, that's kind of what spurred the Iran-Contra, you know, during the Reagan years. This kind of started this whole backlash, black communities, because they were ravaged by, you know, they were basically just allowing, you know, kind of these, in the name of, you know, like nothing in America, in these ideological wars that they've set, which is basically the war on crime, the war on communism, the war on terrorism. It's just really been wars on like groups of people, the war on communism, again, we were willing to, pay, Nicaragua, the Sandistas, the Contras, the Contras, again, were selling, bringing in cocaine from, the Colombians, and then they were bringing them by the ton load. They didn't care. Like whoever was watching them, you're seeing like if you watch Snowfall on FX, and that's funny because you don't even really learn. It's crazy because that's even where I started like getting these ideas or started like researching them on my own was like off an FX show. I don't know if you watch Snowfall.
Snowfall, of course.
Dude, the badass show, but it's based again, the Freeway, Ricky Ross, they were using, again, watch, that's kind of who that's based on, but like, like a different version. It's more of a fictional version. But this stuff really happened. And if it wasn't for Gary Webb, we don't even know how much longer it would have happened. Eventually, like I said, he just wouldn't get off it. They ruined his career.